evening, Moorestown. My name is Moorestown Mayor Quinton Law, and this is Mayorathon. Welcome to day 3. I am so glad to be here at the community house in downtown Moorestown, and we are so grateful to Pam Henschel and the community house team for having us here in Moorestown. There's no better place that I would want to host the Mayorathon. And you might be asking, and for those of us that are new here, I'll say, because I know that there's some folks that are tuning in every night. For those of us that are new, you might ask, what is this about? What are you doing? This is an experiment in transparency and accessibility. As mayor, when I became mayor, I host monthly town halls. And every month we would have, about 2 to 25 people at town hall downtown. And when I did a virtual live stream in September, we reached hundreds of residents, and I knew we had to stay connected. So this is an experiment in accessibility and transparency. Whatever works, we'll continue to do, and whatever doesn't, we won't. But it's all in an effort to give you information, to uplift and amplify the voices here in our community, and also raise money for a fantastic cause, inspiring life together. And I don't know if you watched last night's stream, which was incredibly emotional and powerful. I recommend that you go back and watch it if you can. But we raised over $400 last night, and we hit our $500 goal on night 2 of Mayorathon. And we come into today's stream, night 3, with $690 raised for inspiring life together. And that's because of your support and the support of our community to help this nonprofit that supports moms fighting breast cancer with emotional and financial resources. And don't forget, if you publicly donate any amount, you get onto a raffle for 2 free Flyers tickets, 5 rows from the ice, to a game of your choice. So anyone that donates, if you click the link, Frank, is the link in the bio? I mean, the link's in the chat. So if you click that link in the chat and you donate, you are entered into a raffle for 2 free Flyers tickets, 5 rows off the ice. Please help us support the important work of inspiring life together. Now let's get into our Moorestown update. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about one of my favorite neighborhoods in Moorestown, the historic Linola neighborhood. And you might have saw on my Instagram or my Facebook recently, I did a reel talking about the work that we've done in the neighborhood and what we've done for Linola. I highly encourage that you go check it out because there's so many exciting things happening in that neighborhood. One of which is we've completely redone the streetscape. We've added bike lanes, which are slowing cars down. We put in planter mediums in the middle of the road that add an aesthetic and plants in the middle of the road, so it adds to the streetscape. But we've also added new lighting. And for the first time in a very long time, we've added holiday decorations on Camden Avenue in Linola. And as someone who owns a home in Linola, I've talked to residents and they tell me all the time, hey, we feel like that town council sometimes forgets about Linola because we're all the way on the west end of town. And I'm here to say that as someone who's lived in Linola for 5 years, I'm committed to continue to invest in our neighborhood and make it the best that it can absolutely be for Moorestown residents. And that doesn't just start with new decorations. That starts with making sure that we work with the business owners to look at the areas that need a little bit more love. And for those that live in Moorestown, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Getty gas station that's been abandoned for too long, and the ILM shopping center that's directly across the street. So what we've done from a council perspective is we've named both areas an area in need and redevelopment. So Google that if you don't know what it is, but it's a mechanism that allows us to give property owners tools to help redevelop their properties. And for the gas station, one of my goals before I leave this office is to make sure that we demolish that gas station. For too long, that abandoned gas station has been a blight on the neighborhood, and the Linola neighbors are tired of it. We need the gas station to come down because that's what's going to be a positive step forward in attracting investors and businesses to the Linola neighborhood. So my council colleagues and I are focused on doing whatever we can to work with the property owners who are Moorestown residents to demolish the gas station and see progress on that property. And then when we look across the street for the ILM shopping center, that has been, it has a Dunkin' Donuts and a nail salon in it, and it's been pretty much vacant. It used to have the old Retro Fitness that closed during COVID. One thing that we're doing is we're working with the property owner. He unfortunately doesn't live in Moorestown. He lives in South Beach, Miami. And we're trying to work with him to make sure that we see progress at the property. One thing that we've done is we've expanded where liquor licenses are allowed in town. So you might have heard me last night talk a little bit about where we can have liquor licenses. We've actually allowed distribution liquor licenses on Camden Avenue and Linola as well. And the hope is that we can get a grocery store in Moorestown, a Trader Joe's that sells wine and beer. Imagine that at the ILM shopping center. At one point in time in Linola, we had a grocery store. So it would be great to have that back. But even if we don't get the grocery store, it would be fantastic to just get the property redeveloped and get things going again so we can see some life in that neighborhood. And last but certainly not least, we're continuing business relationships. I've spoken to many of the property and business owners down in Linola, and I'm working with them to ensure that they have the tools they need, that they have all the information from the township, and they know what's coming down the pike. And we are committed to continuing reinvesting in the Linola neighborhood because it has so much potential as a new downtown commercial area in Moorestown. That's our Moorestown update tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free, as always, to put your questions in the chat, and I will get to them as soon as possible. And we will make sure to stop for questions along the way. And one thing that we noticed about last night was it was really great to have questions in the chat, and it allowed us to interact with you a little bit. So if you want to drop a question or a comment or even a concern, and if I can't answer you tonight, I promise I will get back to you and get you the answers you need. So without further ado, I want to introduce the guest that we have tonight. We are discussing a very important topic, something that's near and dear to my heart. I want to introduce Robert Jackson.
Welcome, thank you. It's good to see you, good brother.
Great to see you. Great to see you. So, you mind if I tell folks a little bit about you? I got a little bio I like to read.
Please go off. I love to hear myself.
So Robert Azim Jackson III is an Afrofuturist data strategist and cultural storyteller whose work explores how memory, identity, and technology shape the future of Black communities. Through Remembrance Framework, Rob helps organizations build systems that protect legacy, strengthen belonging, and empower future generations. So Rob, I appreciate you being here. You and I met about 5 years ago. At this point, we were talking about before the stream started. And it was on a project that was related to a park here in Moorestown that's right off of North Church Street. It's called Yancey Adams Park. And Yancey Adams Park was the home of the West End Community Center, which was the Black community center in Moorestown for over 40 years before it was torn down in the late 70s. So Rob and I met because there were families in town that were looking to preserve the history of the West End Community Center. And in 2021, if you went to the park, it wasn't in the greatest condition. And frankly, there was nothing there that would tell you about the rich history that the park has. So I'm so happy to have you on tonight to have this conversation, and hopefully we can educate the community. We have 29 people watching right now. So we can educate the community a little bit about the West End Center, Yancey Adams Park, and all that you are doing with families in Moorestown to preserve Black history. So you wanna just tell us a little bit about what brought you here tonight?
Absolutely. Mayor Quinton, or should I just call you?
You call me Quinton.
Quinton? All right, well, just little behind the scenes baseball. Before I came here, I had a couple coffees. I had about 6 coffees, 3 of which from 3 different coffee shops in Moorestown. Y'all got some great coffee shops, by the way.
French Press, Cubbyhole, Duncan, Pie Lady.
Okay.
Zena's. Yeah,
Zena's was popping. Zena's was popping. I went to
Zena's,
Zena's, and you're a known quantity. Like, I went to Zena's. They said, "Tell Quincy." I said, "Hey," I don't think we're really that close yet. But Hannah says, "Hey." Okay. And you knew her sister.
Yep.
Because you played ball.
Yeah, it's funny because I'll run into people. People will come up to me and they'll be like, "Hey, I worked with your mom at Friendly's. Like, you were the kid sitting in the booth while she was working." And I'm like, and they're like, "I used to smoke cigarettes with your mom." I'm like, "I don't want to know that. My mom does not smoke cigarettes now. I don't want to know that." But it's crazy when you grow up in a community, how many people know you and getting into this role, it's been awesome to kind of see how far sometimes those things reach. So I appreciate it.
No doubt. And so like, just like that, it was family that really got me here in the first place. It was kind of my family. I grew up basically the firstborn on two sides, and that meant I got to see my elders as young people grow into their eldership and show me the way very early on. And so as I've gotten older, you know, I've had an affinity towards folks who are a little bit older than myself. We have a shared friend, Richard Gray.
Absolutely.
And him and I became quick friends back in 2018. And around the pandemic, when both of us, you know, and maybe you can share in this as well, the experience of just kind of being black men in America, there was a lot of tension and attention around, you know, the stories of being black, the stories of black life. And frankly, with the amount of loss we experienced throughout the pandemic, there were a lack of stories and an erasure of acknowledgement and room for grief for all the families we all lost, no matter our demographic and background. But Richard and I, him being basically 30 years my senior, me being around 28, 29, you know, I confided to him as a black brother about feeling isolated, feeling alone, and not knowing where to put this energy, this grief, and this missingness. There were people we lost during the pandemic, Richard, myself, and others.
You both were kind of in the same space because Richard is a professor and he's in the academia world, but the Gray family has a long standing here in Moorestown. And I'm pretty sure, wasn't Richard's father one of the first black state troopers in New Jersey?
Yeah, his father was the first black cop in Moorestown. That's what he said.
Oh no!
So that's
yes, first black cop in Moorestown. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And so to tie that in, we started to talk about the stories that we had about our hometowns, and that really helped me come out of that kind of feeling lonely. And so over the years since 2021, Richard and I kept having conversation. And he started, him and I, and some other folks, an oral history project with the Moorestown Historical Society, where we uncovered, and there's a photo, Frank, of Richard's father, who was the first African-American cop of Moorestown. And
Got it up on screen.
yeah, thanks,
really?
Frank. Beautiful. And the crazy thing about that was Richard didn't have that photo. That photo came from some Moorestowner who heard about the oral history project. And
Moorestonian.
bro, thank you. Y'all are so good about catching people about the right terminology.
Hey, if you're a Moorestonian and watching this, I'm looking out for us, all right? I'll always look out for us.
Mayor's job number one. Don't ever let people get your name wrong.
Put some respect
Put
on
some
the name.
respect on the name. 2 O's.
Yep,
That was the
not
first
2 R's.
lesson.
Yep.
That was the first lesson.
Yes, sir.
2 O's, not 2 R's.
Yep.
So,
I mean, if you're from Moorestown, you've definitely had a conversation where someone says, "Oh, I know Moorestown. It's all the way up in North Jersey. And it's got all these restaurants." And you're like, "No, it's not that one. It's the better one in Burlington County that we're from." So
yeah, and I don't have a political affiliation. This is the better Moorestown. So, the short version is the Gray family, 5 generations deep into Moorestown. Richard told me stories about Moorestown that made it feel like home to me. And I grew up in McKeesport, PA, and in Purcellville, Virginia, and in Wilmington, Delaware, and all over the place because my family were military and we got on the road a lot. But Richard really told me a story about Moorestown that made it feel like home. Fast forward to 2024, 2025, and we're at a point with the Remembrance Day project where, from my end, I've been able to, you know, get on the TEDx stage and talk about explicitly your hometown, this great community, as a cornerstone and a beacon for work that is centered around remembering our elders while they're here, and also celebrating the lessons and wisdom that they gave us as we continue to carry the torch of great storytelling, building community, and re-falling in love with remembering our hometowns correctly.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I would have never expected when I became mayor to know that someone would be having a TED Talk and talking about the work that we're doing here in Moorestown. So I want to thank you for amplifying that. And where was the TED Talk, by the way? If folks, it's on YouTube, right?
It's on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a year ago, and honestly,
And what state was it in?
it was in Jacksonville, Florida.
So you were down in Jacksonville, Florida, talking about the work we were doing here in
Talking
Moorestown?
about Jersey.
Listen,
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it.
You know, listen, and that's the whole point. Our stories carry cross timelines, cross geographic lines, and frankly, you won't get the energy that was in the room on the YouTube.
Yeah.
But folks were laughing, man. Folks were having a good time, and it really felt like a key that when I've come to Moorestown and hung out with Richard when he's doing his oral history, or even seeing you interact in some of these Mayorathons, there's a warmth here. There's a love here that I think I got to bring down to Jacksonville. And now what we're trying to do with the Remembrance Day project, with the podcast and with the block party, we're just trying to really turn that into an engine for not just remembering rightly, but how do we make sure that folks take what y'all do best, which is bring that compassion. Y'all are so generous and generative with how you take in new ideas and tell us how you think about the world, but you're also willing to give permission and space to people who come at it a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a Mooristowner, so the thing that makes this space Mooristonian. I'm not a Mooristonian. So the thing that really made it special to me, and what separates it from just going to small town to small town to small town, which makes this space, this landmass, and we'll get into the history, why the history makes this place a great site for remembrance.
Yeah.
But what today makes this a great place for remembrance are the people. Every day I've gotten a chance to walk by in my coffee shop walk, in my getting some sushi, who really embody a acceptance and love that reminds me of my hometown. And it helps that y'all are Eagles fans. Go Birds.
So you live in DC now, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So thank you for making the drive up here. Did you drive or take the train?
Oh, we drove.
Thank you for taking I-95 up here. But that's exactly what we wanted to do when we were thinking of the concept of Mayorathon, was because a lot of people don't realize that Moorestown was founded by Quakers. Some of our earliest values are grounded in abolitionist values, which are diversity, equality, and respect and kindness. And here we are 350 years later, looking at our community, and those values are so entrenched. And from a day-to-day, I mean, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I love the flowers on Main Street. They look, the hanging baskets look so nice. Tell the public works guys that they did a great job. I'm like, that's volunteers. These are volunteers that show up weekly, bi-weekly to water these flower baskets that over the summer people love because it makes Main Street Main Street. And that volunteer spirit of our community is in so many things, but including the West End Center in Yancey Adams. So let's talk a little bit about the history. When you and I first met, I was 23 years old. I just got elected on the town council, and I wanted to have listening. I was doing listening sessions similar to what I do now. And I was at a listening session, and someone stood up. His name, I'll shout him out, is Mr. Greg Chin. He's a Moorestown legend himself. He stood up and said, Councilman Law, I've been trying to get somebody to fix up Yancey Adams for the last 10 years, and I haven't heard any response from the township. The sidewalks are broken up. The lights are broken out like shattered glass. The baseball backstop. I used to play t-ball there as a kid. The baseball backstop was overgrown, and the park just wasn't. It needed more love. It wasn't in a great condition. And then there was no sign that said who Yancey and Adams were. Most people actually thought Yancey Adams was one person. The only plaque at the park was a plaque that was basically on the ground that said Yancey Adams Park, established in 1976. So anyone that went there, they didn't know who these people were. They didn't know the history of the park. But if you went to any other park in Moorestown, you would see a sign that said who this park was named after, why, and why it's important to our community. So Mr. Chin challenged me in that moment. He said, you need to do something about that park. And I was like, me? Oh, I keep hitting my mic. Excuse me, everybody, if you can hear that. I was like, me? What? I can try, but he's like, no, you're gonna do something about that park. And we need to get it done. So since then, that's when we started down this road, and I got in touch with Professor Gray and yourself, and we started on improvements and all those types of things. But that's what brought us to this point, was because that park needed more love. It needed some attention from town council. And since 2021, we've fixed the sidewalk, we fixed the lights, added new benches, taken down the overgrown backstop. And we're, most importantly, in my opinion, we've added a sign that honors Roxana Yancey and James Adams. Let's say their names because they added an incredible contribution to Moorestown history. But I just wanted to let folks know that's how we got here, is because one of you came to an elected official and said, this needs to change, and here's why. And here we are 5 years later, and so much has changed. We're now getting grant funding to tell the stories, and we have people like you. So tell us a little bit about when you first got on the scene and started learning about the park and learning about the stories. What was your impression of this whole situation?
Yeah, man. Thank you for recapping basically 5 years of very intentional work and maybe 5 generations of preservation of legacy and truth.
Yes, sir.
And I say that like humbly. I'm just another one of these guys who would have been walking down the street at the park, walking my dog, hoping I kept a poop bag with me, not knowing where I was standing. And I can't fault the new generation community who sees that place just as a space for, taking care of what's important to the day and not knowing what that land really represented. Richard and I have talked about this idea of eldership and how, going back to the pandemic briefly, we lost a lot of elders, not just our elders who've been living on this earth the longest, but even just the rituals and lessons and the ideas of eldership that they were meant to pass on to us. Knowing how to get from one place to the other without using Google Maps was something that our elders would teach us.
Yeah.
Knowing how to make a proper roux or how to flip a biscuit. Or, if you're lucky enough, how to make a good pot of collard greens. That wasn't just a trope that you saw on Thanksgiving Instagrams. That was actually the magic of what made generations of Moorestonians come back home on Thanksgiving to get that pot.
Absolutely.
But really to get the story that came with that pot.
Absolutely.
And similarly to the Yancey Adams Park story, I don't know a hoot about Yancey or Adams. And I still don't know as much as I would like to. But what I did know from Richard's story was that he grew up in a West End center. And I said, wait, West End? I grew up in a West End.
Really?
Yes, my mother, Lisa Jackson, that was her first, not her first job. She had many jobs, but it was the job where, to me, it was my second home, West End Center.
Wow.
And when Richard and I started to recognize that this phrase, West End, it pops up all over the East Coast, and weirdly enough, along the path of the American 13 colonies, we started to kind of find these through lines through our own experience as Black men growing up in these communal spaces, being first young kids who were supposed to listen to our elders, and now at this age where we're trying to retain and preserve the lessons of our elders, and realize that the West End Center was like this force or this space for holding our collective memory and histories, our rich tapestries of who we were.
Yeah.
Richard told me that these folks use the West End Center not just to play basketball or do cookouts, but to raise scholarship money, to connect with corporations like Northrop Grumman and Campbell's to find jobs and sponsorships, and to also just shape 5 to 6 family generations of interreligious, intercommunal gathering. That was what makes Moorestown, like you guys put it, the greatest place in America to live.
In 2005, we're incredibly proud of, And hopefully we can get
back.
back.
I still think we're the greatest place in America to live, but it would be an honor to get that acknowledgement again. But for the folks that are watching, and maybe you don't know, you're asking, hey, why is there a West End Center? Why was a Black community center in Moorestown created for the first place? And it was created because we're sitting here in the community house tonight. This community house building is over 100 years old. The community house was around, when the West End Center was built. But the reason why is because Black folks in Moorestown weren't welcome in this building at that point in time. We weren't allowed to have weddings. We weren't allowed to have gatherings. So a community center that was separate was created right down the road on Church Street. And that, as Rob said, was the place where people like Professor Richard Gray grew up, places where his father mentored young people as the first Black officer here in Moorestown. It was places where children became adults and became leaders of the next generation, doctors, lawyers, business executives. There was even a Negro League baseball team the Moorestown Crescents that practice at Yancey Adams Park. This is where a community was built. And the fact that it was 2021 and you walk into the park and all you see is Yancey Adams, established in 1976. I felt like the community was getting robbed of our history. And as Robert said, you said we were losing so many elders. And what's the saying every time an elder unfortunately passes away?
A library burns.
A library burns.
Yeah, and me personally, like when I think about the American tradition, because that's an African proverb, but when I think about the American tradition and particularly the African American tradition, and I think about New Jersey in that tradition, our stories are a part of the founding fabric of this country, and it's 2025. We're going into 2026, and this will be the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. Next year. And Richard and I, because I'm a weirdo, we were having this conversation 7 years ago. And I was like, 250's coming. He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, 250, we got to get ourselves together because we got to make sure that we're telling the story of the places we love before somebody else tells us what's great. And, what's important about that for this project and now is, and Frank, there was a picture, I think, of the Blue Chips. When we talk about what the West End Center celebrated. Yeah, that's you. You're good. Mine's down here. What the West End Center celebrated is something that I said early on in every grant proposal that we didn't get to the ones that we got now, going back to 2021 to today. Now we have coffers full with some resources, and we're building towards a major block party that I think you know about as the mayor of the town that we're going to be doing here in the fall in Moorestown in 2026. But the reason for this block party, the reason for us being here tonight is because we want to make sure that celebrating Moorestown and celebrating history or building new histories is something that is fun, that is for all of us, and frankly, isn't just up to the folks we call auntie, grandma, and elders. That actually, there's a lot of role for us in our 20s, in our 30s, in our teens, in our schools, and those who still attend church to tell the story of Moorestown, to tell the story of America, to tell the story of our own families. And when we talk about Remembrance Day, whether it's on my TED Talk or here more locally in Moorestown, honestly, it starts with the personal remembrance. So like, seriously, call your auntie, call your grandma. I'm about to after this. Not tonight. It's going to be late for her, but I'm going to call her this weekend. You can hold me accountable. I'm going to hold you accountable. I got your number now.
Yes, sir.
Call your auntie. Ask her a story. Ask her how she got her name. Ask her how she got here. If you folks are listening or are going to listen to this later, make that same call. If you're a school teacher or if you have a classroom, figure out why your school's named the way it's named. Some of the greatest work and remembrance I've experienced before it became my journey was my own alma mater at Georgetown University, where in the year 2013 through 2015, there were Black-led and all student-led protests to remember rightly the enslaved young people and elders and just enslaved peoples who were marched from DC to New Orleans to pay for the debt of a university that wasn't yet as famous as it was today. And so when we talk about legacies and remembrance, it's not about shaming people. It's not about hurting people and making them feel ashamed of where they are. It's remembering that when we remember rightly, we all get a chance to hold truth and we all get a chance to be invited into what's next.
Absolutely.
And so truly, when Richard and I were having conversations in 2021, we were writing an invitation to each other to be more honest about who we were to each other, to be more honest about, that we really probably came from the same neighborhood, even though we're separated by 30 years. And frankly, to be honest about the fact that if we want to live in an America that has a future for not just ourselves today, but for the children that we already have, like Richard's a father. I'm not a father yet. Don't worry about it. Mom, Dad, we good. But the children we hope to have, we have to start remembering the stories that give us life when we are feeling isolated and depressed. And we have to celebrate those stories as big and as loud and as boisterous as we can. And so, I'm not from Moorestown, but Richard and I, we get down with the get down when we're together. And if him and I can put it together, I really felt like this night would be our save the date for the podcast series. That's the invitation for the party and celebration of Moorestown, its history today, that comes in that block party in the fall.
And this is all going to happen next year.
This is all 2026 in the fall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. Let's put a pin in that. But I just want to lay a little bit more groundwork, if that's okay. So you said, dig into your own history. Figure out how your parents got their name. Figure out how your school got their name. As a young Moorestonian, I went on that journey. And it really sparked something in me because I grew up on a street called Farmdale Road. Farmdale Road was built in the mid-50s. My grandmother was the second owner of her house on Farmdale Road. She was a business owner in Camden. My family owned a bar in Camden for over 50 years. My grandmother was a single mother raising 2 kids. And she bought a house in Moorestown because she wanted to give her kids a better education. That house was on Farmdale Road. A lot of people don't realize that Farmdale Road was actually built to expand Black housing in Moorestown. So there's a lot of conversation about DEI programs. I'm sure you've heard it. I've heard it too. Lockheed Martin, have you ever heard of Lockheed Martin? So they have a huge facility here in Moorestown. Back in the day, that facility used to be ran by RCA. You know RCA, which is the record company.
Yeah, of course.
So RCA had a DEI program way back in the 50s and the 60s for Black engineers, where they wanted to get more Black engineers into their program. However, the Black engineers didn't have anywhere to live here in Moorestown. So there was a developer named Blaze Revicchio who said, okay, if you're a Black engineer and you can't buy a house anywhere in Moorestown, I'll build a development for Black engineers. And that was Farmdale Road. So my grandmother was the second owner. She wasn't an engineer, but she was the second owner of her house moving into a Black neighborhood. And when I found that out, I was like, oh, wow, that's why there were so many Black folks on my street growing up.
Right.
But 2, it opens up your eyes to the fact that, oh, our community was segregated at one point in time, which is why we had a Black community center, which is why we had a historic Black neighborhood, which was called the West End. And that history helped me inform why the park is in the condition it is in today. So when I had Mr. Chin say, hey, you need to do something about this park, we said, okay, we're going to start working on it. Let's have a listening session. Let's have a town hall to discuss with the neighbors the future of this park. And the neighborhood today looks a little bit different than the neighborhood did then. Back then it was a majority Black neighborhood. Today things have changed. It's a more of a mixed demographic. So folks jump on to the call to talk about the future of the park, what we're going to do at Yancey Adams. People not knowing the history of the park, and you know this story very well because it was important to the grant. People not knowing the history of the park brought up all different types of ideas. They said, let's make it a dog park. Let's make it a splash pad. Let's make it a skate park. Someone said, I want it to be a skate park. And I think at one point, Professor Gray or myself, one of us jumped in and we said, all right, let's just pause for a second and let's bring on somebody that can come and talk about the history of the park. So Professor Gray started laying out the history, who James Adams was and who Roxana Yancey was. And that changed the whole tune of the conversation. And at the end, someone actually said, knowing the history of the park now, I realize how inappropriate my comment to make it a dog park was. And there was no malice there. That person didn't have any negative intention. They just didn't know. And the fact that we were able to educate them on what the history was gave them a whole new level of appreciation for the space. And then they saw the vision. And they said, no, we need a memorial that commemorates the history of these 2 individuals. But before we get into the grant, because I want you to tell them a little bit about the grant, is it okay if I read to the community a little bit about who James Adams and Roxana Yancey were?
Yes.
So I have an excerpt here from a book. It's called A Quiet Walk Through Time by Philip Flanders. You can get a copy of it at the library, and it has histories about Black stories here in Moorestown. And one of which, it has chapters about the West End Center, Mrs. Yancey and Mr. Adams. And it's honestly been something that has been incredibly informative for my learning. I'm trying to pull it up, but I don't know if I have it. I thought I took a photo of it, but I might not have it. But I know their stories off the top of my head, so that's not a problem. Give me 1 second, community. I know you guys are waiting patiently. So, for example, Mr. James Adams. Mr. James Adams of Farmdale Road directed the West End Community Center for more than 30 years. The center was demolished in 1970. Oh, no. It was demolished in the late 70s because of the poor state of repair. But James Adams was a local hero to many young black folks in our community, and he worked tenaciously to break down the racial barriers of town. He gathered some of the youth. He actually led sit-ins here in Moorestown. So there were segregated restaurants here in Moorestown where James Adams led sit-ins in an effort to desegregate those places. In 1977, his service was honored to the community by the creation of the park. But let me tell you a little bit about him. He was born in Philly. He was America's first Black Eagle Scout. The first Black Eagle Scout in America was a Moorstownian. He went to the University of Pennsylvania where he got his bachelor's degree, and then he spent his life pouring into Moorestown residents. That was through the West End Center had a homework club, it had after-school programs, it had baseball and basketball leagues, and of course, it was a place where many Black families here in Moorestown got married. And then when we talk about Roxana Yancey, sorry, I'm just reading off my phone here. Roxana Yancey lived on North Church Street. She was adjacent to the West End Center. She was born in Richmond, Virginia, and graduated from the Hampton Institute of Virginia. And she was a teacher in Cinnaminson and Moorestown Public Schools. She retired in 1933 after 35 years of service in New Jersey. And she was responsible for the establishment of the first Black kindergarten here in Moorestown. So again, because Moorestown schools were segregated, we needed to start schools that were for Black children. Miss Yancey started the first Black kindergarten. She was active in the International League of Peace and Freedom, and she started a branch of the YWCA right here in Moorestown. So this is someone that for years on end poured into our students here in Moorestown, created leaders, and that's why we're here acknowledging them tonight. And this was all revolving around the West End Community Center. So one great thing that came out of that was we were able to, I sat down with Senator Troy Singleton, he's our state senator, and he heard our story and helped us get $250,000 in state funds to improve the park, which we have used to do some of the construction, but we've also been able to get grants from the New Jersey Historic Trust, and that's what you've been a part of.
Yes.
So at this point, that was a long lead in. I wanted to, it's important that people know the history, you know? I'm sorry, we have 33 people on, and I see Tracy Allen saying, I remember RCA in Moorestown. My mother worked there. This is so interesting. Elizabeth Rodriguez said, I would love to visit and also learn more. Pam Henschel, who's the executive director of the community house, said, Moorestown in the community house history, we need to share. We embrace and we have learned. So thank you for the comments thus far, but I want to kick it to Rob. Tell us about your experience with the grant and how we've gotten money from the New Jersey Historic Trust to preserve this history, and then what we're doing in 2026 with the Remembrance.
Yes. So, thank you so much to yourself and other, public officials, public leaders. It takes a lot of leadership is recognizing that your budget and where you put your dollars is a moral statement. And the fact that I have been working on this work in other places with great histories like Washington, D.C., Atlanta, New Orleans, and not found as fertile a community who's interested in celebrating their history, not for tourism, but for each other, and willing to put dollars behind that. I'm giving the secret sauce away. That's what makes it special. It's the fact that you thought and know and were given that call and response of how important those details you just shared were. Because like my fave, Toni Morrison.
I love Toni Morrison.
That's my girl. We could do this all day on Toni.
The Bluest Eye actually was a book I read
my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And it really, it shook me in a way where you're like, Toni Morrison, if you haven't read her works, it really is a visual story on race and how some people see race here in our country. And it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye.
Oh yeah, I recommend all Toni. Don't ever apologize for bringing up Toni Morrison. She is and continues to be the greatest rapper of all time, dead or alive. Watch her clips. We could argue. You won't win. But more critically to today, her nonfiction essay to Amnesty International, which their role in the world is to amplify and excavate atrocities and erasures of communities in far more violent countries than our own, and far more predatory places than our own to histories. But in her essay in her War Against Error, she talks about the importance of details that shift the bumps of history a little bit further away from the arc of justice. And I'm paraphrasing. She didn't say that. That's a Rob original. But Tony's talking about how important it is for us to hold truth, not facts. Because, I think in politics, facts are like knives, right? Y'all just chopping each other up with facts that none of us care about.
No comment.
Right, my bad. We talk about remembrance right now. But with truth, and why I think that's really important is because Richard is a lawyer. I'm a Afrofuturist data scientist. Richard's a lawyer whose dad was a cop. I'm an Afro data scientist. You're a mayor. And I don't know who are the people behind the grant who decided to say yes, but I guarantee you they didn't grow up in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, or in Purcellville, Virginia like me. But they saw me in themselves in the proposal. They saw that the stories that we want to excavate and share and hold up are more about truth than fact, and that truth is always an invitation. And so in our proposal, we invited them to go on this journey a few years ago that started off with these oral histories that we're now converting into a podcast, so that folks like yourself, in the spirit of accessibility, in the spirit of inviting others to give us more stories, because this is a generative process where just like when you go to that cookout, just like when you go to Thanksgiving, whether you ask the same question to the same auntie and she gives you the same story, it's not the same story.
Yep.
So we really wanted to recreate that cookout. We really wanted to create this immersive experience for so many of us who are frankly isolated in our jobs, isolated in our lives, isolated in our making sure we do our 9 to 5s. What if you pop on this podcast and now you're a Mooristonian for 30 minutes? And then it reminds you could be a Mooristonian for a day if you come to the block party. Or you can continue to support Mooristonians in the way that they shape each other with donations to the great efforts you are doing in the Mayorathon. And also, by sincerely, and I mean this sincerely, call your grandma and call your great-grandpa and ask them where they got their names. Because if that doesn't inspire you to want to do your own Remembrance Day work at home, it'll at least get you to call me so we can get you to the block party for free. So, the grant helps us to be a proof of concept to say that, hey, you know what? Right now, this is important. Because the grant is a moral testament to the right now. And why right now? Yes, it is tied explicitly to the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. But more critically, it is tied to families like the Grays, families like the Eldridges, families like the Browns, who literally all Moorestown families that are beating in the back of my head every day saying, hey, we invited you in, now what you gonna do with it? And what I love to do with it, if you ask anybody who knows myself, who's worked with Cypher, my main business, or who's been a part of the Remembrance Day thus far work, we're committed to joy.
That's awesome.
We're committed to joy, and sometimes joy takes dollars, but mostly it takes us being willing to create social spaces that say yes to everybody. And so we really emphasize with the grant, with the podcast, with the creating of the work, and with the actual block party to come. How do we make sure that elders feel like they're the rock star at the block party? How do we make sure that when we tell the story of elders of Moorestown through the podcast, that it feels like you're listening to a story about your favorite pop idol or your favorite soul artist or whoever you need it to be? And more critically, the thing that I think about most, because all of this comes from a spiritual place, truly for me. Like I told in the TED Talk, I was in a very, I was at my lowest. I was telling myself a story about erasing myself. And I know that is a story that not just Mooristonians, but all of us have held in our hearts. And maybe on a day-to-day basis, we vibrate on that frequency of maybe erasing our story. And it's truly, I pray to God that Richard and I stay close, because that man shows up, grabs you, tells you a story about home, and makes you feel at home.
Yep.
And he made me trust you and made me want to reach out to do this today. And obviously, he made you trust me a little bit to put me on this stage, and I'm a fool. So the fact that Richard is holding me down, holding you down, having us on this stage, and I'm on my best behavior, because truly I believe in what you're doing here, and you believe what I'm doing here. The grant tonight, and which y'all will see with the podcast and the block party, are really just rituals, new rituals, and remembering old Moorestown, and honestly inviting the new Moorestonians and those who just want to be a part of a story and legacy like this and take it back to their hometowns to join in. Because this grant, along with the work that we're doing with the Moorestown Historical Society, is meant to inspire folks in places like St. Paul, Minnesota, and other places where I call home to do similar work. So you are a beacon for that.
Thank you.
It's honestly an honor to know that the work that we're doing here is a model for historic preservation around the country. We have the Historical Society, who when are we meeting with the Historical Society? Is that Saturday? So Saturday during the day, our only daytime stream will be on this Saturday with the Moorestown Historical Society. And they've worked with your team to get the grants from the New Jersey Historic Trust. And do you know how much the first one was $20,000?
Yeah.
And what's this one?
Man, I think we're over 60.
Over $300,000 in grants have gone to preserve Black history and commemorate the history of Yancey Adams and the West End Center here in Moorestown. And I know that the first round of grants that they did, the Historical Society had an event at the library where they invited elders and people from the West End Center to come in with their old photos, articles, anything they had. And they had a copier, right? Or a scanning machine in the back. Yeah. They had a scanning machine, so they were scanning in all of these old things and digitizing the history. Because as we said, the saying is when an elderly person in our community passes away, a library burns. Right. We can't afford any more books burned, metaphorically, here in our community. And I appreciate you laying the groundwork for us to remember that history. But it sounds like, so we have more grant funding coming in from the New Jersey Historic Trust. And the goal is in 2026 to do this podcast. So the podcast is going to be about the West End Center and the stories of the families. But then folks can tune into that on like the regular Spotify, Apple Music. Okay, cool. And I look forward to being on. I hopefully.
Like you're very, I love the humility. It's the public official in you. I don't have to do that. I'm not a public official. The point of the podcast is not just to tell a great story and give you something to listen to as you drive to wherever you're coming from, to the Moorestown block party. See how I'm setting y'all up for entertainment. The point is also to recognize that sincerely, not only is every step of the process that we've mentioned is like proof of concept, brother, you are a son of Moorestown. You are the first mayor in 25 years to be born and bred here. And you hold it down, and people know you and love you. And genuinely speaking, the work that we're doing is to inspire not just more Quintons, but just people who love their town the way you love your town. Not everybody's designed to be mayor. Not everybody's designed to go around the country and talk about other people's histories like me, to have the audacity to do that. I get that it's kind of crazy. But we all have the courage and the opportunity and the privilege to fall in love with the place that we call home, even if it's just the home for right now. Yes, sir. And to remember that every block has a story to tell. And so you are that memory piece, because as we do this podcast series, we're trying to make clear that not only is Moorestown a great and special place historically, and not only are we trying to remember histories of Black histories, so to speak, or histories of segregation forgotten, but genuinely how we've been holding this story, because I held it that way when I first got started back in 2021, especially when I heard about that dog park. Yeah. I was upset, and I'm not even from here. I was just upset because I'm in D.C., where all I see are dog parks where there used to be places that people used to go and be people. And so I'm used to it, and I know what it looks like. We say the word gentrification, and either you turn your nose up at it or you ignore it these days. So I'm tired of that. But what we want to be doing is remembrance. And so what we're trying to do with you as part of this is, you don't have remembrance without participatory design, which is Mr. Chin, or the Eldridge families, or the Brown families, or the Gray family. You need participatory design. You need participants from the community. But you also need a leader who recognizes that the budget is a moral document. And how do we put our morals in front of us to give people what they're asking for, even if they haven't said it till after you did it? Like, you're putting stuff out there for facts in this live chat, and people are telling you in this live chat, oh, that was really interesting, that's important.
Yeah.
We're trying to make that the whole evening, but with great music, great food, and elders telling great stories.
So let me ask you, because
We're at 7:55. We're getting towards the end of the stream, and I want to, there's a couple questions I ask every guest I want to get to. But before we get to that, we do have some questions in the chat I'd like to just highlight. So someone said, I remember RCA in Moorestown. My mom worked there. This is so interesting. Marcia Fullard, do you know her? No, Marcia Fullard, she said, this is fascinating. I did not know these black stories of Moorestown. I graduated from Moorestown Friends in 1979. I was the only black girl in my class. It was a life-changing experience. Spring Williams, who was on last night, said this is incredible, wonderful history. And Pam Henschel met Toni Morrison. She was fabulous in person, a great human. I would have loved to meet Toni Morrison. Elizabeth Rodriguez said, I have a question. I would like to visit and offer to volunteer. Who can I contact? So this is a great.
I was about to be like, hey, pull up, but.
Well, no. Well, what I'll say is that's a great question. So one, Rob, you're working with the Moorestown Historical Society on this project. So a great place to start would be the Moorestown Historical Society, because they are the beacon for preserving all history here in town. Their president is fantastic, and I would highly recommend reaching out via that way, or you can reach out to us on my email. I can put you in touch.
Actually, the email was at the bottom of the screen.
The email is at the bottom of the screen, so you can send that email. Thank you to my wonderful production team, Cole, Frank, and John, for making that happen behind the scenes. But do we have a date for the block party yet?
You know what? We don't have a date yet. We will be using the recently updated Moorestown website where the permits are.
Okay.
For the community event permits
Okay.
that you brought up in the Mayorathon a couple days ago. We'll secure that date.
Okay.
The date is not set, but we are looking for volunteers. We're looking for local businesses to sponsor.
Awesome.
And we're also looking for more stories. So one of the things that, whether it's going to be on the live stream or we can put it on afterwards, we're going to put up a reel of photos at some point of the Weston Center, Moorestown legends, and we're still trying to identify people. So if you know someone in the photo, please reach out to me directly. My Instagram and social is attached to the same Chiron. And also reach out to the Moorestown Historical Society, whichever you feel comfortable with. But the point of this, and I respond directly, even if you just want to volunteer and get a part of this or do something with your own family. But yeah, we don't have a date yet, but we're aiming for the fall. And between now and then, we're going to be releasing a lot of snippets around the podcast, getting content out there so folks can really understand who they're going to be speaking with when they come to the event.
Absolutely.
And when we say history and collective memory, we mean building something that has teeth, has a heart, and wants to hold your hand and take you down a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it's amazing because
the West End Center was a home for cookouts, was a home for block parties. So being able to relive that, although there isn't much parking, so we're gonna have to figure out that piece. But once we figure out that piece, I think it'll be a fantastic event, and it will really shine a light on an area of history in our community that frankly has not been discussed enough. And it's my goal as mayor to preserve history. And I said this last night, historic preservation doesn't have to get in the way of progress. Historic preservation actually is progress because we maintain the charm of our community, we maintain the vibrancy of our community, and the next generation of leaders, the next generation of people that come up to be Moorestonians will be able to know who Yancey, Roxana Yancey, who James Adams were, what the West End Center was, and why Yancey Adams Park is so important. So I hope that if you're watching this, that you get involved with the Historical Society, you come to the block party, you listen to the podcast, follow my friend Rob here, because there's more to come. This is like I said, over $300,000 have been given to this effort to improve a park here in Moorestown and to preserve our history. So Rob, thank you, but I do have a question for you. First thing is, what about the future of Moorestown makes you most excited?
It's the best question I've been asked in a long time. What makes me most excited about the future of Moorestown is when I was walking from here, I took a 15-minute walk to Second Baptist, and I saw the Armitage Park.
The Armitage Sordin Park, yep.
Armitage Sordin Park. And then I saw Second Baptist, and I saw this little like waterway. Maybe there's like an estuary or some little thing that runs through. And I was just on my walk back from there to here and felt at home. And what makes me so excited for Moorestown's future is you all have perfected the art of making a place feel like home, but in your hands and the hands of the folks that I've met today, yeah, even the barista who handed me a delicious Americano more than once, I'm really excited for the fact that you all are such a compassionate community who's willing to put your resources behind each other's joy. And I think that is an unstoppable force of beauty that I want to be a part of. And if I could be anywhere in July 4th celebrating the 250th anniversary, it's probably with my family. I'm gonna be real with you, because we have the best fireworks, especially up in PA.
Yeah.
In Upper PA.
Yep.
No shade. I'm an Eagles fan, but Steelers country, they got better fireworks. But I'd know if I came here for 4th of July, or if I came here for Juneteenth, I wouldn't know which day was which, because the joy and the energy would be real, and that's what makes me most excited for Moorestown, that you recognize that, yeah, we got to tell the story of segregation, yeah, we got to tell the story of integration, yeah, we got to tell the story about things we tried not to tell the story about. Why? So that we can get to these better stories about who we want to be.
Absolutely.
And I love that about Moorestown.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we're knocking on New Year's. People are coming up with their New Year's resolutions, thinking about who they want to be in 2026. And you're a poet, right? So I would love to give you the opportunity to maybe leave some Moorestonians that are watching tonight. We have 33 people still watching. And let me just read some of these comments to give you some time to think. It says, "Thank you, Robert. Hearing people who are preserving and sharing actual history reaffirms our faith in humanity and our hopes for the future." Quinton, Carol Washington knows a lot of history. Someone said, "Not every mayor cares so much about their history. For many mayors, it's more about politics." Thank you. I appreciate that. We try to put people over politics in my office. Moorestown is home for so many. We are proud of our town, history, and legacy. Hashtag Go Birds. Next up is, "Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Mayor Quinton. Amazing job tonight." So Rob, before we go into closing thoughts, could you give some words of wisdom to the Moorestonians that are on tonight as they get ready for the holidays and move into their new year?
Wow, wisdom, that's a tall order. I will give you something poetic and hope that down the road it lands on you as something that is fruitful. Every night we wake up realizing we spent the day doing things for others. I hope that this night, when you wake up and look up at the sky, you see all the stars that lit it up for you to be bright. 2026 is just another night. I hope we get to spend it together, eyes wide open. Good night.
Eyes wide open, brother. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Moorestown. We will be right back for closing thoughts. Great job, man.
Yeah, I'd be on the fly with a little poem. You got me on there. I almost went to
The Mayorathon livestream is raising funds to support moms facing breast cancer through Inspiring Life Together. Inspiring Life Together raises funds to provide emotional support, community care, and real help for families in need. They create safe spaces where women are supported through treatment, recovery, and life beyond cancer.
During the Mayorathon livestream, we're proud to raise funds in support of this mission. Every conversation, performance, and spotlight during the Mayorathon helps uplift their work. If you can, please donate using the QR code on the screen and help us support Inspiring Life Together. Thank you. The Mayorathon livestream is raising funds to support moms facing breast cancer through Inspiring Life Together. Inspiring Life Together raises funds to provide emotional support, community care, and real help for families in need. They create safe spaces where women are supported through treatment, recovery, and life beyond cancer. During the Mayorathon livestream, we're proud to raise funds in support of this mission. Every conversation, performance, and spotlight during the Mayorathon helps uplift their work. If you can, please donate using the QR code on the screen and help us support Inspiring Life Together. Thank you. The Mayorathon livestream is raising funds to support moms facing breast cancer through Inspiring Life Together. Inspiring Life Together raises funds to provide emotional support, community care, and real help for families in need. They create safe spaces where women are supported through treatment, recovery, and life beyond cancer. During the Mayorathon livestream, we're proud to raise funds in support of this mission. Every conversation, performance, and spotlight during the Mayorathon helps uplift their work. If you can, please donate using the QR code on the screen and help us support Inspiring Life Together. Thank you.
Welcome back, Moorestown. This is Mayor Quinton Law for closing thoughts. I want to thank Rob Jackson for joining us tonight. That was a fantastic conversation, and I hope you learned something tonight about our efforts to preserve history and Black history here in our community. It's been a 5-year run when we're working on this, and when I was in that town hall 5 years ago, and I had a resident say, "You need to do something about this," there was no way I thought I would be here today 5 years later. So I'm proud of the progress that we've been able to accomplish up to this point, but we certainly have so much further to go. And that starts with next year with the podcast that's sponsored by a grant from the New Jersey Historic Trust to talk about the West End Center that the Historical Society will be working with Rob and his team to produce. And also the block party that's going to be happening next summer and fall at Yancey Adams Park. We're incredibly excited about that. So stay tuned for that. Tomorrow night, we have the Madrigals. So if you're from Moorestown, you know that the Madrigals are local celebrities. This is the high school honors choir. They're going to be joining us to talk about their mission, what they do. And I'm going to be honest, ever since I was a kid, I remember being in 3rd grade and having the Madrigals come dressed up, singing at my school. I'm going to be a little starstruck, I want to be honest, but I'm ready to see them come in and talk to us a little bit about the work they do. And hopefully we can continue to get one step closer to our new goal of $1,000. And you might not know this, but when we started the Mayorathon, we just wanted to get the cameras to work. We just wanted people to tune in. I was looking at how many people are watching tonight. There's 20 of you on right now, still after an hour. We had almost up to 40 people on tonight. I'm incredibly grateful to all of you for taking your time, listening, learning, and supporting what we're doing here in Moorestown. But if you haven't donated yet, please click the link. Is the link still in the chat, production team? The link is still in the chat to support Inspiring Life Together. They're a local nonprofit founded by a Moorestown educator that supports moms that are fighting breast cancer with emotional, financial resources. And if you donate any amount publicly, you will be entered into a raffle for 2 free Flyers tickets, 5 rows from the ice, to a game of your choice.
We were so grateful to have a Flyers season ticket holder donate these tickets. So please make it worth it. Donate $5, $10, $100 will help us reach our goal. And I'm about to click my phone to see where we're at, to see if anyone donated. Right now, we are still at $693. Folks, if we can get to $700 by tomorrow, we will be this much closer to accomplishing our $1,000 goal by the end of Mayorathon. So thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow night, we have a fantastic stream for you. Is it starting at 6 or 7? Starting at 7 o'clock, we will have the Moorestown Magicals. My name is Mayor Quinton Law. This is night 3 of the Mayorathon. Thank you for joining us, and have a great night.